the previous segment, we discussed polytheist, monotheist, and dualist religions, which despite many differences, all share the belief in gods. But during the first millennium BC, religions of an altogether new kind began to spread through Afro-Asia. The newcomers were religions such as Jainism and Buddhism in India, Taoism and Confucianism in China, and Stoicism, Cynicism, and Epicureanism in the Mediterranean area, religions which were characterized by their disregard of gods. These religions maintained that the superhuman order governing the world is the product of natural laws and not the product of divine wills and whims. Some of these natural law religions continued to believe in the existence of gods, but their gods were considered to be subject to the laws of nature just like humans and animals and plants. Gods had their niche in the ecosystem just as elephants or porcupines had theirs, but the gods could not change the laws of nature just as elephants and porcupines couldn't change them. A prime example of these new religions, natural law religions, is Buddhism, which was probably the most important of the ancient natural law religions and which remains even today one of the major faiths of the world. The central figure of Buddhism is not a god, but a human being, Siddhartha Gautama. According to Buddhist tradition, Gautama was heir to a small kingdom in the Himalaya mountains in northern India about 500 BC. The young prince was deeply impressed by the suffering which he saw all around him in his kingdom and city and in the world at large. He saw that men and women, children and old people, they all suffer, not just from occasional calamities such as war or plague, but they suffer constantly from anxieties, frustrations, and discontent, all of which seemed to be an inseparable part of the human condition. You can end all wars and plagues, but people will still suffer from all these anxieties and discontentment. What Gautama saw was that people pursue wealth and power. They acquire knowledge. They acquire many possessions. They beget sons and daughters. They build houses and palaces and whatever. But no matter what humans achieve, they are never content. They are never satisfied. Those who live in poverty naturally dream about being rich. Those who have managed to gain 1 million, they now want 2 million. Those who have 2 million, they now dream about having 10 million. Even the rich and famous, like his own family, the royal family, even they were rarely satisfied. They too are haunted by ceaseless cares and worries, which doesn't end until sickness, old age, and death put an end to it. And then everything that one accumulated and pursued throughout his or her life, everything vanishes just like smoke. Life, it seemed to Gautama, was a kind of pointless rat race. But what other way was there? Was there any way to escape this endless rat race which ends only with death? When Gautama was 29, according to Buddhist tradition, he decided that answering this question is the most important thing in life. He left in the middle of the night. He slipped away from his palace. He left behind his family. He left behind his possessions, his kingdom, everything. And he traveled as a homeless vagabond throughout northern India, searching for a way out of suffering. Not only out of wars and plagues, but out of all anxieties and frustrations and discontent. Gautama spent 6 years meditating on the essence, the causes, and the potential cures for suffering. And in the end, he came to the realization that suffering is not caused by ill fortune, like some earthquake. Suffering is not caused by social injustice, and suffering is not caused by divine whims, by the whim of some god or goddess. Rather, Gautama discovered, suffering is caused by the behavior patterns of one's own mind. Gautama's big insight was that no matter what the mind experiences, it almost always reacts with craving, and craving always results or involves dissatisfaction. When the mind experiences something unpleasant, like you experience pain, you crave to be rid of it. And when the mind experiences something pleasant, it still craves. It craves that the pleasure will remain and will intensify. And therefore, the mind is always dissatisfied and restless, always craves for something more. This is very clear when we experience unpleasant things, such as pain. As long as the pain continues, we obviously want to be rid of it. Yet, even when we experience pleasant things, according to Gautama's findings, we are never content. We either fear that the pleasure might disappear, or we hope that the pleasure will intensify. For example, people who dream for years about finding love and being in a relationship, when they finally get what they want, this pleasant thing of finding love and being in a relationship, they are rarely completely satisfied. Either some people, they are all the time afraid that yes, I have it now, but I may lose it. Maybe he or she are going to leave me. Whereas other people, they say, yes, I have it, but I could have maybe got something better. Why settle for this guy or for this girl? I could get something better. And some people, they are torn by both problems simultaneously. They both fear that he or she are going to leave me, and they are all the time having this gnawing thought that I could have got something better. Maybe I should keep looking, keep searching. Great gods can send us love, they can send us rain, social institutions can provide us with justice, with good health care, and lucky coincidences can turn us into millionaires. But none of these things can change the basic patterns of the mind. Consequently, even the wealthiest and the most powerful people are never satisfied. They are constantly fleeing from unpleasant experiences, and they are forever chasing after greater and greater pleasures. They are not satisfied with their present condition. Gautama found that there was one way to escape this vicious circle in which humans are caught. If, when the mind experiences something, pleasant or unpleasant, it simply understands and accepts things as they are, then there is no suffering. If you experience sadness without craving that sadness go away, you continue to feel sad, you continue to feel sadness, but you don't suffer from it. There can actually be much richness, much insight in the sadness. If, on the other hand, you experience joy without craving that this joy should linger and intensify, then you continue to feel joy, but without losing your peace of mind, and you can be completely satisfied with the joy, whatever amount it is, with the joy that you have. But how to do it? How do you get the mind to understand and accept things exactly as they are, without craving for something else or something more? How can you accept sadness as sadness, pain as pain, joy as joy? To do that, Gautama developed a set of meditation techniques that train the mind to experience reality as it is without craving for something different or something more. These meditative practices train the mind to focus all its attention on the question, what am I really experiencing right now? And not on the question, what would I rather be experiencing instead? It is very difficult to achieve this state of mind, but it is not impossible. Gautama also grounded these meditation techniques in a set of ethical rules which are meant to make it easier for people to focus on the actual experience of the present while avoiding falling into all kinds of fantasies and cravings and fears. Gautama instructed his followers to avoid killing, to avoid promiscuous sex, to avoid theft, not because some great god forbade it, but because such acts like killing and stealing and so forth, they necessarily increase the fires of craving for power, sensual pleasure, and wealth, so they make the mind less and less satisfied. When the flames of craving are completely extinguished, however, craving is replaced by a state of perfect contentment and serenity, which is known in Buddhism as nirvana. The literal meaning of the word nirvana is the extinguishing of the fire, extinguishing the fire of craving that all the time burns in the mind and creates all this dissatisfaction and misery. According to Buddhist ideas, those who have managed to attain nirvana are fully liberated from all suffering. They experience reality with the utmost clarity, without any fantasies and any delusions. They might still encounter a lot of unpleasantness, even a lot of pain in their lives, but such experiences do not cause them misery, because they have no craving for the pain or unpleasantness to go away. A person who does not crave simply cannot suffer. According to Buddhist tradition, Gautama himself managed to attain nirvana and was fully liberated from all suffering, and henceforth he was known as Buddha. The meaning of the word Buddha is the enlightened one. And Buddha, after freeing himself from all suffering, he spent the rest of his life explaining his discoveries to others so that everyone could also be free from suffering. And Buddha encapsulated all of his teaching in a single law, a law which says that suffering arises from craving. The only way to be fully liberated from suffering is to be fully liberated from craving, and that the only way to be liberated from craving is to train the mind to experience reality as it is, without craving for reality to be something else. This law, which is known in Buddhism as Dharma or Dhamma, is seen by Buddhists as a universal law of nature. That suffering always arises from craving is true everywhere for everybody, just as in modern physics, E always equals mc squared. This is a law of nature. And Buddhists are people who believe in this particular law of nature and make it the center of all their activities. Belief in gods, on the other hand, is of minor importance to Buddhism. Whereas the first principle of monotheist religions says God exists, what does he want from me? The first principle of Buddhism says suffering exists. How do I get out of it? Gods have little to play, have little influence on this. Buddhism does not deny the existence of gods. They are often described in Buddhist philosophy and Buddhist stories as powerful beings who can do such things as bring rain or bring victory in war. But gods, according to Buddhism, have no influence on the law of nature. Suffering and happiness are an outcome of a natural law which works in complete independence of the gods. If the mind of a particular person is free of all craving, no God in the universe can make this person miserable. Conversely, once craving arises in the mind of a person, all the gods in the universe combined cannot save this person from suffering, because craving inevitably leads to suffering. This, at least, is the Buddhist theory. Yet, much like the monotheist religions, the pre-modern natural law religions, such as Buddhism, never really managed to rid themselves completely of the worship of various gods. Buddhism acknowledged the existence of the gods and their efficacy in bringing rain and victory and cure for disease and so forth. Buddhism told people that they, however, should aim for the ultimate goal of complete liberation from suffering and not settle for all kinds of lesser aims like economic prosperity or political power. However, 99% of Buddhists did not attain nirvana, and 99% of Buddhists, even if they hoped someday, maybe in a future lifetime, to be completely liberated from suffering, they devoted most of their present life to the pursuit of mundane achievements, like economic prosperity or political power. And therefore most Buddhists continued to worship various gods, such as the Hindu gods in India, the Bon gods in Tibet, the Shinto gods in Japan, and all kinds of new Buddhist gods and saints. This is something that has characterized all the traditional natural law religions, not just Buddhism. Also Taoism and Jainism and others. Even though in theory they gave little importance to gods, in practice the worship of different gods continued to be of considerable importance to Buddhists and Taoists and Jains and so forth. The gods finally lost their power and importance only with the coming of the modern age. However, the weakening of the gods did not mean the disappearance of religion, because religion and gods are very, very different things. When the gods became weak and less important, what happened is that natural law religions, religions that believes in laws of nature that people should obey, these religions were finally freed from all these worship of gods, and they became even more important than ever before. I am not talking about the old natural law religions like Buddhism and Taoism, but about a number of new natural law religions that emerged over the last 300 years and became extremely important in the modern world. The last 300 years are often depicted as an age of growing secularism, in which religion increasingly loses its importance and centrality. And if we are talking about theist religions, religions that focus on the worship of gods, then this is largely correct. Gods have become less and less important over the last few centuries. But if we take into consideration natural law religions, then the modern age turns out to be an age of intense religious fervor, unparalleled missionary efforts, and the bloodiest wars of religion in history. Because the modern age have witnessed the rise of a number of new natural law religions, such as liberalism, communism, capitalism, nationalism, and Nazism. These creeds, they do not like to be called religions, and they prefer to call themselves ideologies. But this is just a semantic exercise. If, as we defined in the beginning of this lesson, if a religion is a system of human norms and values, which is founded on belief in a superhuman order, then communism is no less of a religion than Islam. Islam is, of course, very different from communism because Islam sees the laws of the universal order as emanating from a great creator God that created the whole universe, whereas communism does not believe in any gods. However, the belief in God, as we said earlier, is not so essential for religions. Buddhism too, at least in its pure forms, give very little importance to gods, and yet we commonly classified Buddhism as a religion. Like Buddhists, communists believe in a superhuman order of natural and immutable laws that govern the world and humanity, which should guide human actions. Whereas Buddhists believe that the law of nature was discovered by Siddhartha Gautama, communists believe that the law of nature, a different law of nature of course, was discovered by Karl Marx, Friedrich Engels, and Vladimir Ilyich Lenin. And the similarities do not end there. Like other religions, communism too had its holy scriptures and prophetic books, such as Karl Marx's Das Kapital, which prophesied, foretold that history would soon end with the inevitable victory of the proletariat over the capitalist system. Communism had its holidays and festivals, such as the 1st of May or the anniversary of the Bolshevik Revolution in Russia. Communism had theologians adept at Marxist dialectics, and every unit in the Soviet Red Army had a chaplain called the Commissar who monitored the piety and the beliefs of the soldiers and officers. Communism also had martyrs and holy wars and even heresies such as Trotskyism. In the Soviet Union, Trotskyism was considered a terrible, horrible heresy. Communism was a fanatical and missionary religion. According to communist ideology, a real devout communist could not be at the same time a believer in Christianity or Buddhism, and was expected to spread the true word, the gospel of Marx and Lenin, even at the cost of his or her own life. In order to understand the logic more deeply of calling communism a religion, let us take a look at this diagram, which explains what a religion is. As we said previously, a religion is a system of human norms and values that is founded on belief in a superhuman order. Now, not every belief in a superhuman order is a religion. For example, as we said, the theory of relativity believes in a superhuman order, an order that humans did not invent and cannot change at will. Yet it is not a religion because there are no human norms and values that are founded on it. Nobody says that it is wrong to murder or to steal because it violates the theory of relativity. So this is why it is not a religion. Conversely, not every system of human norms and values is a religion. As we said, football is not a religion because nobody argues that the rules of football reflect superhuman edicts or superhuman order. Islam, Buddhism, and communism, they are all religions because they are all systems of human norms and values that are founded on a belief in a superhuman order. Now, note very carefully the difference between superhuman and supernatural. The Buddhist law of nature and the Marxist laws of history, they are superhuman, since they were not legislated by humans and humans cannot change them. However, they are not supernatural. They are not outside nature. They are the laws of nature. Now, some of you may feel, despite all these explanations, some of you may feel uncomfortable with this entire line of reasoning. If it makes you feel better, you're of course free to go on calling communism an ideology and not a religion. It makes no difference. It's just semantics. We can, if we want, we can divide creeds into religions which are centered on belief in gods and ideologies which have no gods and claim to be based on natural laws. What is crucial, however, is to realize that modern ideologies function in much the same way as traditional religions. They give superhuman legitimacy to humans' norms and values. This is the main thing that is important to understand. Now, of all the new ideologies and religions that emerged in the modern era, we cannot discuss all of them because there are many. But I would like to discuss the most important ones. And the most important ones are the humanist ideologies or humanist religions. These ideologies or religions of humanism, they have switched from worshipping gods to worshipping humankind itself. These humanist religions, the religions that worship humankind, they today are the dominant religions in the world. They dominate the world. And the next segment of this lesson will be dedicated to examining the central beliefs and practices of the humanist religions.